move to the underside now, and we've not done anything with this since we did the panel line wash, which we deliberately left it a little bit grimier than we'd done on the upper surface, just to help with some of the modulation and change of shading across the bottom. Now I'm going to do a slightly different approach underneath. I'm going to use the same brush. I'm going to use a mix of pastels. So I've got the same brown that we've used on the top, plus this sort of light deserty sandy yellow colour, and just a little bit of this more orangey reddy brown, and we're mixing those together to make a paler dusty look for underneath, because what we were trying to do on the upper surface is we were trying to create a feeling of dusty but faded upper surfaces, whereas with the lower we're concentrating on accumulated dust. So we've actually started by taking the same process that we did on the upper surfaces, round through, following through on all of the aluminium areas, so with just the darky earth type colour, and we followed that through, and that looks suitably dusty and grimy there now, but that's not where we're going to leave that. Now what we're going to do here is we're going to do something slightly different, like I say, and we're actually going to focus on doing this a panel at a time, which I know sounds time consuming, and it is a little bit, but at the same time it's really going to help us with getting a really nice feel to the underside of this, and a really good trick when you're doing this is to use a post-it note or similar. This is that type of thing, and you can use the hard edge of the post-it note to go along your panel line. So actually we'll do it on this one, then you can see it better. So we're using the hard edge of the panel line and just pressing it down in the gummy area like so. Got that is loose, so we'll have to deal with that. And then we load our brush with a little bit of the pastel mix, and then starting actually on the post-it and dragging off. And we don't want to go to the end of the panel, we just want to start on the post-it note and drag it down over the first sort of half of the panel. And what that does is it protects you from putting anything on the panel line above. Now, for show you when we do this again on the next panel down, let me just blow the dust off. Probably should be working the other way and working backwards, forwards, but we've started now, so we'll carry on showing you. We'll do the same process again. So take that off. You'll see that what we've done, and again it is subtle, but it's just highlighting those panels and giving us a feeling of the dust getting caught in those panels as it goes along, and just actually highlights where the panels are. Now on these bigger panels, we'll need to go a little bit deeper, but it will give us a nice contrast. Now, it's personal preference when it comes to weathering, so how much you do and how you go about it is up to you. What I'm going to do now, now we've done those first two panels, is I'm just going to key it in at the front and lay some of the same mixture on that leading edge. Just to tie it in, so we've got the same sort of colour references going through. So yeah, I think that's a nice effect. I'm going to carry on doing that and you'll see how that looks at the end. So I'm carrying on with working my way through the underside of this, and I've just taken a couple of pictures. It'll show up quite well on the photographs, but you can see this half has been done. This hasn't been touched yet. Now we're just moving down the fuselage here, and just doing something slightly different. So I wanted to show you what I was doing. Where we've got these from this section here down, we can see the ribs of the aircraft. So a nice little thing to do is just take some of your pastel powder and go down in between those ribs very, very gently, putting the dust down in the sort of the recessed area and not the raised area, if that makes sense. And it just helps highlight the top of the ridge of each of the ribs and just highlights the texture you've got there. So just very subtly, just needs a couple of passes just to highlight them. But it is a nice way of making that detail just pop out a little bit. So now we've finished doing sort of, I suppose you could call it the panel line dusting, where we've gone through it panel by panel and just dusted that up a little bit. We do now need to blend that in a little bit, so we're using a different brush. This is like an ordinary paint brush, and we're going to use the same powders that we've been using for the underside. And just like on the decals, I just want to reduce the contrast a little bit. So we're just lightly dusting over the whole thing just to key it in, because you'd imagine there'd be a general film of dust anyway, but we wanted to highlight the panels and the collection points. So this is a good way of just reducing the harshness of the effect, and whilst keeping the effect and making sure that everything looks sort of natural and in proportion, if that makes sense. Now on the landing gear here, you'll see that what we've done is we've gone heavy on the edge, and then we can just drag over the whole thing. I've purposely left the inside areas dust free. I know obviously the wheels are out when it's taking off and landing, so we need to think about what we want to do with that. Do we want a darker dust? Do we want to use the same dust? So I just need to think about that before we do that. Gone a little bit heavier on the tail area here, where the tail wheel I think would kick some dust up. And the main thing is to make sure that you feel like the decals have been keyed in appropriately. and then we can just clean that off. Right, so I guess my thought for the inside area here is it should be the same dust colour. So what we'll do is we'll just give that a general dusting. We're not going to worry about it too much. Just get in there and give the brush a good wiggle about so it's catching the raised surfaces and the like. And we'll do the same, just dust down the gear. We'll glue that one back on in a sec. Okay, so now that's done, we'll puff it out. I think that keys that in nicely. So that is pastel work done. We are on the very finishing touches now. Okay. Okay, so the lower part of the fuselage is finished. So pretty much that's me done with pastels on the aircraft. But we do have to tackle the tyres and the wheels. So what we're going to do is we're going to do two things with the wheels. We're going to add the same dust that we've used on the underside of the aircraft to collect around the hub. And then we're going to just lighten the rubber a little bit after we've put the mounted the wheels onto the aircraft, if you like. So we're okay at this stage to hold the wheels carefully, and just all we're going to do is go round the join area between the tyre and the hub. And you can see we're just dabbing it. We don't want it to collect in the hub too much. We can blend that in a sec. And then we want to get it down into those little nooks and crannies. So if we... Oh, my hub has just dropped out. That's interesting. We compare the two now. You can see the difference. So we'll just blow the excess away from that. You can see it's subtle, but it gives us a nice realistic effect. And we mustn't forget to do the same on this side. And then what we'll do, we'll put a pale grey on for lightening the tyre rubber a little bit, and that will just key things in a little bit. That's it. Simple. Okay, we have our landing gear fully built up now, and I'm using this pale sort of blue-grey colour just to take down the rubber colour that we put on, the Vallejo rubber colour, and just line it up a little bit. And for me, it mats it down a little bit and gives it a slightly more rubbery look. You can see, and it's just going to tie in the dust that we've put on earlier with the the whole effect basically will look right, if that makes sense. And all we're doing is going around the surfaces of the tyre very lightly and adding this on, and it won't look like dust when we've cleaned it off. It'll just look like tyre rubber. And we're just feathering it, as in going in and out of the area where we've put the dust on, and we can always put some of that desert dust back on afterwards if we feel that we need to. You know, it's a process you can keep building on until you're happy with it, really. You can see why we've done this after we've mounted it on, because I'm not going to be handling the tyres again, so it's a good way of finishing them. So she's now standing on her own 3 feet, and we are at that point now where we need to finish the upper surfaces. So what we've got left to do is the propeller and the spinner. We have the canopy to finish off, and then we've got the panels that we've removed that we need to paint up and display dotted on the wing there. I just feel like we've got a little bit more to just fade the upper surfaces just a little bit more. I just feel like it looks a little bit stark on the wings a little bit, particularly, and this upper surface here. So we're gonna go back to our original brown only weathering colour and just dust that over using the big paintbrush, like we just keyed everything in at the bottom, on the underneath of that plane. Sorry, I should say. We're just going to do the same on the top. Just lightly going over it. And if you remember, this is a slightly lighter colour, so it just blends everything. It also has the effect of further matting down your surfaces. It's very subtle. And it's probably not showing up on camera, but I can see how that's making a difference. Okay, I think I'm happy with that now. Actually, no, I'm not. Okay, so that is definitely our weathering done. So let's move on to the propeller next. So we're going to use such a small amount of paint on just painting this spinner that, and a little tip from me is I've actually removed the paint cup. So we're just going to pour the paint, once we've mixed it and thinned it, straight into the airbrush. And it's just one less thing that you have to paint, to clean when you're finished, isn't it? So my tendency is always to mix too much paint, and I'm probably going to do the same here, but better than having not enough, I guess. So hopefully that'll be enough. Let's see how that dries. I might want to change the colour. I'm not sure I'm 100% happy with that colour, but we'll see what happens when we've given it a second coat. I wasn't happy with that colour, so I've gone to burnt cadmium red, which is 7814. We'll give that a go and see if I like that anymore. Yeah, I think I prefer that. Okay, last few things left to do. We are edging nearer and nearer to the end of this project. So we have painted the propeller, and you can see what a difference using the German grey, that sort of dark sea grey, really helps just drop down the starkness of the black. If I put that black pencil next to it, you can see it just drops it down a bit. And I always think that the yellow tips somehow make the black look a bit blacker. So it's good to get ahead of that. In terms of the yellow tips, we've used 71078, and it's a very simple process. If you've not done yellow tips before, all we've done is get a piece of masking tape to the depth that you want, lay it across the end of your blade, then put another piece underneath to mark your painting line off, and then away you go. And just do that on each tip, front and back.
I'm very pleased with how that's come out. Looks really good. So we've got a little bit of weathering to do on that propeller blade. We've done the spinner. I'm happier with this colour. It's perhaps a little darker than I wanted, but I'm certainly much happier than with the carmine red that I was intending to use. So we've got a little bit of work to do on that. I have done the panels, the etch panels. I haven't done the other side. I'm going to see if we can get away without doing that, because I intend to have them inside up. So they've been gloss black primed, then the MIG metal aluminium that we've used throughout the build, and then a wash with a Tamiya brown panel liner just to make them look suitably grubby, and we'll arrange them around the wing in a moment. Then we've got to build up the spinner, put it on, and a radio cable, and that is it, us done. So let's start with weathering the spinner. And I don't want to do too much with the spinner, but I do want to show the fact that it's spinning in a dusty environment means it's going to have a bit of abrasion on the end, I would imagine. And because this is flat, what I want to do is I just want to sort of polish the end so that we get a bit of a shine, but I don't want to take it all the way down. So I'm just going to use a bit of tissue paper, actually. And you can see there, it's just starting to put a little bit of a shine on the front end. Again, as with all the weathering on this, we have really gone with subtle. So what you get is a gradual sort of shine that becomes duller towards the end. So I think that looks quite nice and quite effective, so I'm happy with that. And then you can, if you wish, with a pencil, a little bit of chipping around where the propeller goes. Okay, that is my spinner done, so we can now separate that. And the fit of that was so tight that I didn't need to glue it or anything like that. We just put a little bit of blue tack in there to hold it in place. So that is now ready for assembly. Just need to get the blue tack out of it. So that's our spinner ready for assembly, and we're done with that. Okay, now on the propellers, I'm going to again use the pencil on the leading edge, which I think is this one here, and we're just going to tap the pencil against it randomly so that we get a nice sort of chipped effect on the leading edge of the paint. And we'll do that on both sides. The spinner will cover some of this up, but it's good to go to the bottom and then it looks genuine. I'm not sure that it's going to come up particularly well on camera, but it will certainly, when we take some photographs, get the right light, you'll see it. So I'm going to carry on and just finish doing that, and then I'll get back to you in a sec. Okay, so time to build this propeller up and get it installed in the aircraft. So we have a cup that goes at the back, which glues to this piece, and we have a pin that goes into there that we don't glue so that the propeller will spin, and that all fits nice and snugly. Yeah, and then that goes in like that. Okay, I think just to make sure that we don't get any glue on the pin, this then goes onto the back of that. So if we put the pin in to locate it, like so. So there's quite a bit of play in that. Yeah, the hole is a fair bit wider than the pin. Okay, I'm going to glue those two pieces together first. And then we're just going to drop that pin out just to make sure there is no glue wicking its way into the pin. So I'll just give that a second. And I want to glue that in and mount it into the aircraft before we put the propeller on, which is now finished and looks suitably realistic, in my mind at least. So that should be all right now. Put that together and we glue that in. That seems to work, and then that goes into there like so. And the fit of that is wonderful. Get that where we want it. Okay, let's turn this around so you can see what we're up to. Right, you can now see better than I can, so we're going to plop this on. And then we can glue that onto the pin there. You have to be a little bit careful with this. I couldn't get that to sit quite on, and then I realised there's a little square, raised square on this plate here, and a recessed square behind that, and actually the propeller will only sit on that plate in one position, so you can't get it. It doesn't want you to put it in the wrong position, so it won't align with any of them. It has to be the specific ones. Right, so hopefully this will go on better. That goes on like a dream now. Right, that should be enough. There we go, that's looking really good. So we now need to put these on. With them being etched, we will just give them a tap down with a bit of white glue, I think. And we'll do something like that, I think. I think we can get away without painting, so that's good. And actually the photo etch looks really good because it's so thin, it looks really quite lifelike when on, so happy with that. So we'll use some of this MIG Ultra glue that I want to use up. Make sure we've got the right panels in the right place. Right, the last job is to put a radial line on there, which should come up from the centre just underneath. That's how it feeds into the actual aircraft and then come along. So what I'm going to do is glue it down to the top of the fuselage first and then work from there. And I'm using, this isn't EZ line or Easy line, it's a similar product but white. In fact, I bought this for the Queen Mary 2 because the rigging on the Queen Mary 2 is all white, but it's going to save me having to paint the black EZ line, so that's really quite cool. Right, don't want to lose that. So I think it should be silver in reality, but that will look just as good, I think, without having to paint it. I would have used a paint pen for that task. So I'm going to put a tiny spot . There we go. should have grabbed already. This is medium CA we're using. Okay, and our last job is to get it down to there, like so. Tiny bit of glue on the top. I'm going to pull it tight and then just move it up. There we go. Job done. So there we have it. Airfix's 1:48 scale Mk 1 Tropical Hurricane finished. So this is the paint scheme A that came in the box, depicting the Hurricane as flown by Sergeant Pilot F.H. Dean of number 274 Squadron, Royal Air Force, Sidi Barrani, Egypt, 1941. I was told by one of the viewers that he was shot down in this aircraft in the same year. What are my final impressions and thoughts, having now completed the build? The model itself is beautiful, goes together really, really well. It's well engineered, simple to build, and has enough detail for it to actually look really quite good when done. I think the ability to open up the wings and show the guns off is a really nice touch. It adds a lot to it. And generally it went together really well, a real joy. There's lots of this went together and held together without any glue whatsoever. So yeah, really good. Some nice options in there. And I think the paint scheme is a little bit unusual, and as such, I really quite enjoyed doing this one. There was no real downsides to this kit, to be honest. I can't think of anything that caused me any great problems. Some of the fit at the front of the wings there needed a little bit of work on, and the back edge of the wings where it meets the fuselage, just getting those lined up, needed a little bit of clean up afterwards. And then the usual join lines. That was it. It's gone together like a dream. A fabulous kit. If you're interested in building a tropical Mk 1 Hurricane, then I certainly wouldn't hold back on saying get this kit. It really is nice. And when finished, as you can see, looks the part. So yeah, I'm happy with it. In terms of my finishing of it, I'm really happy with what I've managed to achieve. I think it's come out really well. I've done what I set out to do, which was to show the aircraft not overly weathered, subtly weathered, but also suitably desert dusty. So I think we've done that. I've deliberately left the propellers free from dust just to give the rest of the aircraft a bit of contrast. And I think that works quite well. So yeah, really happy with that. I'm hoping that those of you that are coming back to the hobby or new to the hobby have found something of interest during the course of the build as we've gone through my process of building this aircraft. Yeah, it's a lovely build. I'm going to go and take some photographs of it now, and we'll do a little montage at the end of the video showing the aircraft off to its best. Okay, thanks for looking in, everyone. Take care, everyone, and we will see you very soon. Enjoy the photos.